Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Ron Thomas from the UW-Stout Manufacturing Outreach Center, and I'm hosting an event we call the Manufacturing Advantage Technology Forum. I'd like to welcome our guests from Guidewheel, Jet, Brody, and Charlotte. And thank you all for taking a minute to take a look at some really cool technology. It's something that I had been looking for because several clients had actually asked me about ways to see what's happening with machines. How do we take advantage of what Industry 4.0 is supposed to do, especially as a small manufacturer? There aren't always solutions that are tailored for where we're at and what we're trying to do. So Guidewheel was really a unique find. I was fortunate, and they were able to do a webinar today. And we'll go through a demonstration and have time for your questions and answers, and figure out where we're going to go from here. So if since we have a reasonably sized group, I can't see a Heidi, would you mind calling on our participants and seeing if they can pop in and share who they are and what challenges 2023 might bring? Or what happened to catch your interest so that you attended today?
Good. We could jump to Adam.
Hi, Adam Mullins from Mullins Cheese and Mullins Way. Actually just got probably a refresher invite yesterday. It looks like probably came a while back, but it's been very hectic here with the year end. So luckily I made a little time this morning to sit in. It just looked like an interesting thing. I think I've been reached out to before by Guidewheel, but the timing wasn't very good for me, but made some time today. So
Great. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Welcome, Adam.
Dan.
Yeah, this is Dan Schmitz with AMS Micromedical. Just looking forward to seeing what how this could apply to our industry and our applications.
Thanks, Dan. Kevin.
Good morning, Kevin Garrity, Riverside Machine. It's always good to take a look at what's out there and see the latest and greatest.
Thanks. Kunal.
It is Kunal Parmar from Hood Packaging. Just joining in just to see what this is about, Industry 4.0, and where I can use in the packaging industry. So, yeah.
Thank you. I've got OEM. Is this Justin?
Yeah, hey, good morning. Justin Walton with OEM. Just recently had a meeting with Ron talking about getting some of our information from the technology we have on the floor into our systems. So just looking at other ways to do that.
Welcome.
Great. And Patrick.
Patrick Bradley here. I'm with a company called Manufactured Financial Solutions. I am presenting next month, and so I just thought I would see what this is all about and learn something new.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you. Yeah.
And we do
Welcome,
have
Patrick.
of our project managers also on the line if they want to introduce. Otherwise, we can keep moving.
Looks like we'll keep moving. All right. So with that, I will hopefully we'll get to answering or showing you something that piques your interest, and you can see how that can help you connect your machines to what you're trying to do and provide you kind of instant feedback. I hand it over to Charlotte, Brody, and Jet to share with you where they're at. And as we're going along, if you have a question, please use the raise your hand feature within the reactions area, and we'll answer those questions. Otherwise, we will have time at the end of it to do kind of a Q&A session. So yeah, either raise your hand and ask a question, or you can put it in the chat, and Heidi or myself will break in the right time or address it at the end. Thank you. We'll see you at the end.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. We're seeing the title slide. You're seeing our beautiful faces, hopefully. Yep. All right. Thumbs up from Ron. Awesome. I'll kick off just with my introduction, and then we'll go to Brody and Jet, and then Jet will take it from there. I'm Charlotte. I lead business development at Guidewheel. I'm super excited and honored to be guiding parts of this presentation. I've been with Guidewheel about a year, and I'm currently based in New York City. Over to Brody.
Thanks, Charlotte. Brody Boston, born and raised in Iowa, Midwest, account executive here at Guidewheel. Been here for about a year as well. Main role for today will be to demo the actual software itself, and very excited and appreciate y'all being here.
Hey everyone, I'm just as excited as Brody is. My name is Jet. I am based out of Baltimore, Maryland, so over on the East Coast, and I'll kick off the conversation today, but appreciate everyone making the time. Great. So we got through introductions, the hard part. I'll hopefully provide some helpful context and help frame the conversation with how we got here, what our conversations with Ron have looked like. Brody's going to talk about why this data matters, hopefully provide some interesting examples of other industries that are using data to improve their processes. Charlotte's going to take us through sort of a detailed look of how we think about solving this problem and what our solution is, and then Brody will jump back in with a demonstration of the platform, and then we'll leave about probably 10 minutes at the end for questions. But we do want to make this interactive, and it's our goal to not be boring. So please jump in with any questions, put them in the chat, come off mute. Any comments, just throw them in there. And we want to be engaging, so don't hesitate. Great. So actually about 7 months ago, we had our first conversation with another NIST center in a different state. They reached out to us because they were looking for a solution for a few of their clients that offered a realistic approach. From there, we quickly realized a mutual alignment in goals in that, one, we have a huge goal of helping small to mid-sized manufacturers, but really the end goal of helping groups reach sustainable peak performance. So today we've had a bunch of conversations, and we've partnered with a little over 13 other NIST MEP centers and working in varying capacities, doing webinars like we are today and doing some consulting, and even some centers are using our technology to run lean assessments on some of their clients. Great. Yeah, so for a while, having useful data in manufacturing has only really been realistic for maybe the top 1% of manufacturers. Those that have the capital, the time, the resources, maybe machines that are new enough for complex integrations. But really, that's not realistic for the rest of manufacturing. And Guidewheel was built with that specifically in mind, allowing other manufacturers to capitalize on that same data to reach that peak performance. So we believe it's critical for any solution, regardless of what it is, to actually work, that they offer a phased approach and one that meets manufacturers where they're at with their current process. And that's something we really pride ourselves in offering us to meet you with what your operation looks like today to help you get to where it could be. And probably the first step, maybe the hardest, that's why I'm letting Brody take it over, is to get folks to understand why this data matters, how we can use it, and what it looks like. So I'll let Brody take his best stab at it.
Perfect. Yeah, I couldn't help but start out with one of my favorite photos. This is a photo of my grandpa and I, one of my favorite people as well. And the reason I highlight this photo, this is my first bow kill, by the way. But my grandpa is a very simple guy. White t-shirt, blue jeans. I promise you, if you meet him, he'll be wearing this exact same outfit. Still has a flip phone, absolutely refuses to change that. He has roll crank windows in his pickup truck, and he hates technology. But the real thing is he's not interested in improving his cell phone. He's not interested in improving his pickup truck, but he's really interested in improving his hunting. And so we've seen him really adopt technology in this space. And industries across the world are changing in terms of how they're evolving with technology. And so here are a couple examples, but there's sort of this underlying formula that we've seen, which is simple data, simple inputs leads to better decisions, which leads to better outcomes. And that's the case for all three of these. These are very simple tools that he now leverages that completely alter the way that we hunt. So we have the rangefinder with slope, helps determine what pin you should be using, more accurately kill deer. He loves the coon hunt. So this one's actually pretty sophisticated. It's the tracker on his dogs to know where they're actually at. Because at 10 p.m. at night, you don't want to spend another couple hours chasing down your dogs when you're ready to leave. 500 yards away north, you know exactly where your dogs are, makes it really simple. Trail cam, I'm sure this one's pretty popular, but knowing what type of deer are in your timber without having to monitor yourself 24/7 gives you better insights into when and where the best deer are so that you can more accurately set up your trails, your tree stand or your blinds, whatever that might be to have better outcomes. So we see this play out with sports as well. And this is where it gets actually really interesting because this is where it's in a competitive space, sports and business. So I'll maybe pause for a second here. This is Super Bowl 52. Eagles are playing the Patriots. Eagles are up 3 with 38 seconds left. But there's something that's really unique about this photo. So if you take a quick look, you might notice it, but I'll spoil it. This is a 4th and 1.5, and the Eagles are the only team in 2018 that would go for it on this down. And there's another time later in the game where they're on their side of the field and they go for it again. So Charlotte, if you want to flip to that, there we go. You can see it's another instance in the game where no team would have gone for it on this 4th down. But what the Eagles were doing, they're the very first team that relied on simple data to actually drive their decisions during the game. And you see this play out in competitive sports that once teams start to do this, everybody starts to adopt it. So if you actually look at the data set, it's really interesting because the data had been around for decades. On the left, you can see the yellow indicates in what scenarios a team should go for it based on data to have the very best results. But on the right, the yellow actually is what teams were doing. And there's this huge disparity between what data suggested was best and what teams were doing. And the Eagles were the first team to start doing it. And it's now completely altered how teams make play calls. You'll see this play out in baseball as well. So on the left, you can see traditional alignment of the field. Over the last couple of years, you'll see this huge infield shifts where the entire infield is moving to accommodate for the percentages of where batters have historically hit the ball. And again, this started with one team and evolves in competitive landscapes to others adopting as well. And Charlotte, I'll hand it over to you for manufacturing specifics, but it's pretty cool to see how other industries are changing as well.
And as much as I would love to talk about hunting and sports the whole time, we are here to talk about manufacturing. So I'll get into some business from here. It's very clear that we all want to prioritize process efficiencies. Digital transformation, super buzzword, shop floor systems. We know that we want it. Our lives outside of our work tells us that it's time for data. However, what we're seeing is 95% of manufacturers surveyed still use some form of paper-based processes. So if this is you, you're definitely not alone. And 27% of those actually have still even more than half of their activities manufacturing-wise using paper. For instance, I recently had a conversation with one of our customers who has their training manuals still handwritten and photocopied and faxed to different sites. So obviously, there's lots of opportunity for us to digitize manufacturing. But why has it been so challenging historically? Before we get into, what is Guidewheel and how are we solving this? The digital factory hype is real, but it's historically hard to achieve. That's because, as Ron had talked about early on, lots of solutions that are in the market, they're expensive. They're really expensive. They're time consuming. They require a ton of change management. We've recently had conversations with a customer who told us we're 3 years into the ERP implementation and the end is in sight. From our point of view, that's unacceptable. And that's not where data is today. And so Guidewheel was invented to provide you with a solution that will give you the same level of visibility, delivering that high value, but is low in cost, importantly, and low in complexity. Data is only as useful as those that are using it. So we also want it to be straightforward to use and scale. What challenges does Guidewheel typically solve for? Prospects will come to us with a few of these challenges. I'll kind of speak through them quickly, but if any of these are relevant for you, would love to hear about it in the chat or feel free to ask any questions. The first is we'll hear often about firefighting. You know that something's wrong, but you're finding out about it way too late. Whether it be because of a system, the way that something is laid out on your plant floor just being inefficient, or maybe you have data that exists, but it's in silos and is therefore not usable, maybe to a whole chunk of your team. Then ultimately the result of this is you're missing on your plan, but you're not able to easily use the data to find out why. And then therefore you're making the wrong decisions when it comes to prioritizing improving things like your overall equipment effectiveness. To solve for these challenges, as Brody and Jet mentioned, we care a lot about the approach. We feel that we're really pioneering the way that manufacturers interact with technology with the crawl, walk, run approach. We'll get into the how and what it is that we actually do. But to start, we turn the lights on for you. What this looks like is us simply shipping you a kit of hardware that you will clip on to the power cord of your machines. And you can immediately start to just see, how am I doing? How does what Guidewheel produce for me compare to what we've been entering for years or months in advance? This can be it's an extremely illuminating moment. We've had some CEOs, not believe the kind of data and comparisons, but what a wonderful opportunity to be able to compare, human error to what technology is telling us. We also believe so strongly in this turn the lights on moment that lots of our customers are just in this phase. Of course, though, we want to grow with you. So Guidewheel is intended to help you get proactive with that data. So once you've turned on Guidewheel, how do we actually make decisions that will drive and improve profits, especially in softer environments like we are today? And finally, the system, as Brody will show you, is equipped to help strategically drive the business. So actually be able to input things like production, show you cycle times, all that fun stuff. Lots of our customers tell us, and I'd be curious if this group agrees or disagrees, feel free to throw it in the chat or come off mute. We believe, and Guidewheel was founded on the idea that unplanned downtime is the fastest bottom line impact. So we can provide availability for you at a super easy implementation point and low in cost, then we can deliver an ROI for your plants. And that's what we've seen across our customer base, because obviously if a machine isn't running, then you're not making money. How does this actually work? So I've alluded to these things, CT sensors. If you're familiar, I actually have one right here. This is called a current transformer. I don't know if you can see my little face here. Great. So current transformers, they've been around for decades. You might be familiar with them. A technician on your plant floor or engineer or someone would certainly be familiar with these. What we do is the CT sensor clips onto the power cord of any machine, no matter the make or model. So we like to joke, I think, what is it, guys? We have machines from like the 1930s is the oldest machine we have on Guidewheel. So if there's current, Guidewheel can pick it up and track it. So as Brody will show you, we're on not just your money maker machines, but it's so easy to use that you'll put us on your auxiliary equipment as well. From there, we use Cat5 cable to hook it up to a hub on the plant floor. Depending on what's best for your facility, we'll use Wi-Fi or LTE or Ethernet. That's where the special sauce comes in terms of what makes Guidewheel special. So the software goes into the cloud, so you can start to see that data anywhere, whenever, wherever you are. Now, before we get into showing you the platform, and obviously we're going to tell you about how great it is, I want to show you some real data from one of our customers using Guidewheel. So as you can see here, these are percentages measuring runtime by month. So this is a real customer of Guidewheel. I'm curious if you can tell when this customer might have implemented Guidewheel. It was right at the tail end of Q2. You can see an increase of 18% in runtime for this particular customer just by clipping Guidewheel onto their machines. This is what we love to see. But it's not just about delivering one runtime number. As Brody will show you, we care a lot about granularity and being able to make real decisions for each machine in your production line. So Here's an example. This again is data from Guidewheel, one of our real customers, where they were able to improve their runtime on critical machines by 210% from January to September. And not only do we want to show you runtime metrics, based on lots of machines or a plant, for instance, we also want to show you the granularity on each machine. So as Brody will take you into, the platform is built to demonstrate what's called a Pareto analysis. Of course, you're familiar. Where we're able to show you where are your leading causes of downtime and how can we make decisions around that. We also have an entire customer success team, which we'll speak about, that is trained to help you use this tool better. So you don't have to be the ones in the platform every day enabling your operators. Now, I'm sure you're probably really eager to get into the tool. So without further ado, Brody, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. I will share my screen. And if anybody has questions on implementation or anything so far, feel free to throw it in the chat, or at the end, we'll have Q&A as a reminder. Okay, can you all see my screen okay? Good to go. Great. So in terms of visibility that Charlotte was talking about, of turning the lights on, this would be the homepage that you'd land on with Guidewheel. So connecting on a CT sensor to the main power cord. This is today in the middle of a shift. You can see what the utilization of the equipment on the plant floor looks like. So very clearly, green, yellow, red indicates green running the way it should be. Yellow would be idle or dry running, and then red would be completely offline. So we look at this, we can actually see what that looks like in terms of power. So you can see when this machine is actually running product. Here, it's no longer running product for a period of time, and then it comes back online. So there are a lot of different applications for this, but all of this data is permanently stored. So you could go back, you could click on any given day within the system. You could group machines however you want. But what you'll find here is a lot of insight into the actual utilization of your equipment. So I'm just going to click into one of these as well so we can get more granular here. Okay, perfect. So what you can see here is exactly when that machine went down, how long it was down for. So you'd see it went down at 11:45 p.m. It was down for 12 minutes. This event was actually tagged as a changeover, but I want to make it clear that the vast majority of folks spend the vast majority of their time early on really just understanding the utilization when machines are going down without even having to tag this sort of data. When they get to the phase of tagging, it'll look something like this. So an alert will get sent when a machine goes down, and or you could do it just directly from the system. But an alert can get sent when the machine goes down. Very simple, you can click into that, and you can, with the tap of a button, click the reason for that downtime reason. So this is the mobile version of this. It could be a tablet, it could be a computer, whatever it might be, but very simply tagging the top reasons for downtime. What that then rolls up into is a Pareto on what are our top causes for these specific machines. Right now, we're looking at all machines. You could look at specific ones that are particularly relevant. What are these top reasons for downtime? How do we start proactively reducing them? But I'd say it's a sort of a combination of things. Early on, it's number one, gaining the visibility into these as things that you want to track and measure the uptime of the equipment. And then number two, alerting on that so that when it happens, people can respond faster. And the alerts can be things like the machine's been idle or down. It could also be things like this motor is overdrawn more than it's ever drawn before. So you might want to check this for like a motor bearing or something like that. And then lastly would be getting into this sort of reporting where you're looking at what are these top reasons so we can proactively start to reduce these. So in terms of how teams visualize it, this is one example of this. This would be a scoreboard. So we sometimes see people want to visualize this on the plant floor, where they might have a TV or something to display this type of information. So you can really quickly at a glance see what machines are up, what machines are down, what machines we need to go address. This is looking at last hour. There are a couple different time frames here to select as well, whatever would be best for your group. And then in terms of what really we're focused on is improving the utilization of the equipment. So we're looking right now, and you can see these are real machines in the system. You'll see last 60 days, holidays had a pretty big impact on this group in terms of the utilization of the equipment. Can go in and toggle off these days. We're really looking at how are we trending in terms of utilization. We can see that on a chart or a table. as well to set targets for these. I'm going to hop into one more section here, which is for those relevant pieces of equipment where cycle time might be something that you're wanting to track. From the same sensor, the CT sensor, we can see a very clear pattern of when that machine is producing cycles. So we can start to look at units being produced over periods of time. Is this at the speed or rate that you're looking for? And all of that is just with the same CT sensor. And you can see how clear that pattern is when those machines do cycle. So I wanted to provide a pretty high level overview of the main areas that most of our groups are focused on, especially early on. But happy to, if anybody wants to come off mute or has any questions, happy to dig into anything else within the platform.
Maybe.
Sorry.
Oh.
Are the
Yeah, somebody have a
downtime
question?
codes, are the downtime codes like pre-programmed, or can you custom program which downtime codes that you want it to present?
Yeah, great question. All of those are customizable. So on the onboarding phase that we work with you, we'll help you customize those to ones you might already be utilizing or ones that be most relevant to your shop. And then most groups are changing those over time as well.
Anyone else have a question or something they'd like to see?
Ron, did you have a question, or were you going to throw up some questions?
So yeah, let me look at my question list.
Yeah.
So let's see. So yeah, how many of your customers are using, I guess, the alerts, and how do you structure those so that you're not getting a notice every time something happens, and getting inundated with more texts as if we need more?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll actually kind of dig into this alerting feature a bit more, but
Okay.
about 97% of our customers right now are using the alert functionality. It's a very simple way. It requires no sort of culture change or anything like that to start to just gain value from the alerts. What that looks like is, so you could pick any machine. And again, we help with all this in onboarding phase, and we have an ongoing partnership where we help with all this. But based on the machine, we gather the data. Typically takes about 3 days for us to have a baseline for the machine's data to be able to say, these are the thresholds where we know we should be alerting based on what you guys are interested in. And then we typically start groups out with larger downtime issues. So just depending on your shop, it might be any event that lasts more than 20 minutes, say. But then over time, start to narrow down those periods. Yep, incrementally bring that down. And what makes this pretty handy as well is, so we can go in here and I could set this up to, let's just say, we'll start it out as myself. We'll say I'm an operator or a supervisor. And then if there's, a manager or someone like that you'd want to escalate it to, you could make sure that the bulk of the alerts are going to the operator or supervisor. But then if something's not addressed, say after 30 minutes, it's a big issue. We want someone else to be notified that's maybe a little bit higher up. There's another way to sort of limit the number of alerts that are going to certain individuals. And all that's customizable by schedules as well.
Go ahead. I'll keep my questions to the end.
Very good. Charlotte, anything else on here that you'd love for me to touch more on?
Maybe I would just say as an overarching, the beauty in the Guidewheel platform is how configurable it is. There's a reason why we want to make it really easy, because we care about adoption. So we want this to be exactly mirrored to your processes. So we like to say, like, you won't have to custom fit your team to Guidewheel. Guidewheel will custom fit to your team. So I would just add that there's a whole settings page that will make sure it fits into what you're doing today. And because of that is why we have customers getting value from Guidewheel, like real return on run rates, for example, in less than 30 days, because it doesn't require anything beyond just putting up some tablets, starting to show them, some of the trends. And the interesting thing I would also say is sometimes it's just about having a system in place can already lead to productivity. So Guidewheel is such a low cost opportunity for you to just say, hey, let's try this out on some machines and deliver value that way. The last thing I would add, Brody, maybe we won't go into depth on it, but just flashing the energy tab. We are, because we're measuring current, tracking your energy consumption. So if you are ever someone who is applying for things like tax credits because of lowering your energy usage, or maybe you have a really big bill, we've had lots of our customers use Guidewheel to get a huge return on some spend that way. So we could talk, for hours about all these different use cases, but the goal is something here piques your interest, and then we're happy to do an in-depth overview with you and maybe some other members of your team at any time.
Ron, maybe the last thing I'll just touch on as well within the system, I'd be curious from your perspective, how a lot of the groups you've worked with historically are tracking like PMs and things like that.
So I think that's a great question. And I think it'd be nice to have some of the participants type in the chat to answer how they're doing that. Because I can't speak for all of them, but most of the clients that I've worked with, PM is a pretty loose term. And I'm assuming you mean preventative maintenance or predictive maintenance. I think a bulk of us tend to fix stuff when it's breaking or broken.
Yeah.
And there's a few I know that do have, staff that does do a PM type process on kind of their key or, kind of bottleneck machines. But yeah, I'm curious, any of you manufacturing folks, what does your PM schedule or process look like?
Robert's off mute. Gold star.
Yeah, well, I just came out of industry, so I've been in metal forming and metal stamping almost my entire career, so a lot of experience with this. And I can say that some companies are really good at it. It's on a schedule regardless of, customer demands, where you're at in the production schedule. Some companies are like that, but a majority are not that way. So I think any tool that can guide people to the benefits of keeping a PM schedule in a more regulated manner is a good thing, because like we started, that unscheduled downtime is a killer. When you schedule it, it's coming, you can plan around it. That's how companies should be going, but unfortunately I've been part of far too many where that's not the case. So like I said, any tool that can guide people in that direction is completely beneficial in my mind, having been through a lot of unscheduled downtime.
Thanks so much for chiming in. Yeah, I was curious because there's one other part of the platform that I'm happy to show as well that's particularly relevant. So Robert, I'd be curious to hear your feedback on this as well, but I'll just really quickly flash this part. But the ability to look at either runtime hours, cycles, and be able to track things like when the last time there is PMs done to molds or certain components of the machines, and tracking that based on runtime or cycles, and making sure that you're staying on top of these things. And again, the ability for us as well to look at, based on the power supply, as that continues to increase, or if it increases over time, knowing that something might be an issue to address. But this is kind of a high level overview of how we might do that within the system and how we would track that. Is this kind of what you're envisioning, Robert, or have thought about in the past on how to consider when to do these?
Yeah, it goes from, preventative maintenance, and this drives it more to predictive maintenance, which is where everybody should be looking. So yeah, absolutely.
Got it. Yep. And this would, again, one sensor, pretty simple to clip on. So trying to provide a lot of different insights that are going to really drive the 80/20. So of course, there are systems out there that are going to tap into the PLC and provide hundreds of data points. But what we're looking at here is a much more simplified approach and more realistic approach for a lot of people.
Yeah, and staying on the PM, I don't think it's that companies don't want to or don't know that it's a good idea. I think it's just one of them things that kind of falls off the radar at times when we're all so busy. But having something that sends us reminders might be more likely. I know I used to wear a Fitbit, and it was definitely helpful when it reminded me I should get up and walk around, especially when I sat in front of my computer or screen or was working on something for a long time. It was nice to have that little reminder. It's easy to say I want to be healthy, but then it's easier in a moment to be reminded to actually do something and take advantage of, let the technology remember stuff so you don't have to, or I don't have to.
It's a good analogy.
And I
Charlotte,
see-
you see the question in the chat?
Yes, love this. And I actually have a visual that can help explain. So let me throw a slide up again. So the answer is yes, absolutely. Guidewheel integrates with your ERP if you would like it to. We have an open API, so data can be pushed and pulled. We would work with your team to set that up. When Brody was speaking about production data, that's an area where you'd of course have interaction with your ERP, so it would be super automatic. I like this slide because what I want to represent is that we are not trying to necessarily be, your all or nothing, or like make you change or replace a bunch of systems. We want to fit into your current tech stack, whether that be pen and paper today or, something robust. Maybe you have a fancy, something that's baked into PLCs on some machines, but you want to start testing auxiliary equipment. We can do that. Guidewheel represents the factory ops layer. So we call it, of course, the WIP, work in progress. You got production, you got, raw product going in, products coming out. What's actually happening in that in between, that mystery black box? That's what we solve for with the alerting and maintenance, which Brody has spoken to, helping you calculate your OEE and make improvements there, and then ultimately the energy reporting. We also currently have customers that are integrating with the CMMS, for example, or other types of tools that they're using for carbon capture. So great question, Dan. Did this help answer or anything beyond that?
Yes, thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you, Dan.
Brody,
If
maybe
anybody wants to,
go ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say, if anybody wants to ask something more technical, you might be able to tell that Charlotte, Jet, and I are not the most technical folks, but we did just have one of our technical account managers join, and he's helped with hundreds of installations. And so if there's anything specific or pretty technical, he'd be able to handle some of those as well.
So I guess I have a question to build on the ERP and the open API. So an API kind of allows you to connect and go back and forth. Is your database or your system open so that customers could write their own code? Is it an open database that they can actually modify or make changes themselves, or where is the line, I guess?
I'm leaning on you, Carlos, unless you'd like me to answer this.
No, that's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay. Ron, I don't know if I'm going to be answering your question perfectly here, but for the teams that are looking to set up like custom visuals, typically they're pulling that with an open API into like SQL or Tableau, Power BI, something like that, to be able to create their own visuals. But they wouldn't be able to change any of the coding within our platform itself.
Okay. So you still could, I think we talked about it before, and I'm not sure that maybe this is where the question was going before, but the ability that when you see the machine cycling or information happening, you could potentially be updating schedules or providing some kind of information that updates cost estimates or things of that nature. At least I can see it evolving into providing a lot of useful data in other ways besides just the machine cycling or not.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of that right now is just pull the data from the system and utilize some of the things you might already have. But the future state of Guidewheel is definitely going to be to what you're speaking to.
Okay. And then I'm guessing everybody is curious. You've mentioned that it's a cost-effective solution. Are you going to share something about where the ballparks of price might be?
Yeah, absolutely. Charlotte, would you like to share on that?
Yeah, I'd love to. This is kind of our punchline because I think you're going to be slightly surprised. So you can get started with pretty much everything that we walked through today, more or less, depending on what's best for your platform, at $1,500 a month. There's no commitment. Our goal is that the proof is in the pudding. So you would start to see, real excitement and returns after 3 months of using Guidewheel. And then the goal is that you'd move forward on an annual contract with us, in which case we can have conversations that way. We have folks paying via credit card. If you wanted to sign up with us today, we can ship you hardware. It's Carlos's favorite thing to do is get new customers on the platform. And it's just $1,500, and then we work from there. Eventually, if it becomes, after we've kind of demonstrated that there's a mutually beneficial situation here, we're driving runtime improvements like we talked about, then we would start to have conversations around, well, how many machines do you want to connect? Do you want to have multiple plants on Guidewheel? In which case we'd work with you to create a proposal that makes the most sense. With the quick start, we typically will have folks, I think it's up to 15 machines, Brody?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and really the quick start's designed to be something where just get it in your hands on a subset of machines to make sure that this data is exactly what you're looking for and is going to drive the sort of change that you're looking for and improvements. Charlotte, do you have the annual pricing? I can pull it up separately if not.
It's a little after. Here we go.
And so the pilot is meant to be an opportunity to basically test it on a subset of machines. And then this essentials package is what I spent the vast majority of the time going over today. The premium does include the cycles and production. So what that looks like is it's more favorable to convert to annual. And then again, if there are multiple plants, we can talk about a specific proposal, et cetera. But per machine, $25 a month for that essentials package, which includes everything minus cycles that we went over today. And there's additional $500 per month plant fee. And this is all based on annual basis. So something like 15 machines is roughly $10,000 a year.
Good, thank you. And, along with either of these packages, so if you're a smaller company and you're looking to maybe start, is a place that you'd recommend is maybe just connecting the 2 or 3 machines that are maybe key to your factory or maybe the bottleneck? Is that the place where you guys would recommend starting? Or is that where your other customers or clients have started?
Yeah, absolutely. The money makers are obviously the first place to start. And then we also like to do a diverse group of machines. So putting it on other pieces of equipment, it could be like compressors, chillers, fans, things like that, that might be critical to your operation if something were to happen. But being able to connect to a couple different things is usually insightful for folks. Yeah, that's typically the best.
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead, Brody.
Go ahead.
You mentioned it with the pilot, but with these packages, it includes a lot of support, ongoing support. It includes all the hardware, unlimited users. So the price is the price. There is no additional fees for anything else like that.
Very good. Is anybody else? I'm curious within the chat or if you want to pop on. Yeah, I found the fact that 95% are still paper-based is a pretty amazing find. That probably seems accurate. And I'm curious what caught your interest or attention as we went through, or just what do you think?
Could
this be useful?
Yeah. I'm also curious, did we accomplish our goal of not making this boring, as Jet said? Hopefully you learned some things. Maybe we have this slide. So I just wanted to add in kind of a bit of a visual on how the installation works. So maybe Carlos, since we do have you here, do you mind giving kind of a 30 seconds on how you set up a new customer on Guidewheel?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very straightforward. It's not too complicated how the installation goes. It's basically, there is a lot of technical stuff inside of it, but I'm not going to go over that. It's just basically the big picture that is, you will have different equipment on you. So one is the meter, the sensor, the enclosure. That is the most important thing. So first thing will be to assemble the meter inside of the enclosure, put the enclosure close to the machines. Where's the best place to put it? If you have group of machines, we recommend to have 1 meter by group of machines. So the next step will be to clip the sensor on the first face of the machine. That is usually, or the first leg, that is usually the best place to clip the sensor, because what we are looking for is a difference in the amperage consumption between running and idling. When the machine is running, the amperage consumption gets higher. When it's not running, it gets lower. It's basically that. So this is information that is sending second by second directly to the meter. So once the sensor is clipped, the sensor needs to be in the meter connected. As you can see, is the step number 4. And the last but not least step will be to power on the meter and give connectivity to it. So it's very plug and play. Once the meter is connected with the internet and it's on, you only need to replicate and clip in more sensors into more machines, and that's it. I will configure the system, and I don't want to say that, but I'm the fastest on the installation, so it will take me usually less than an hour to configure the system on your machines. So it's not too complicated, but if you have more questions, let me know.
Thanks, Carlos.
So as long as it draws power, the system works. I'm not sure, has there been any machines you've came across that this doesn't work, where you need another alternative like optical or?
No, I mean, we have different size. As long as the machine has power, we have machines connected or individual parts of the machines, because probably there are some customers that don't want to track the entire machines. They want to track a specific drive and a specific motor, solenoid, anything like that. So as far as we have machines that goes from when it's running 0.1, when it's not running is like 0 or 0.01. It's like really low amp consumption. So as far as the machine has energy, we can track that.
Thank you, Carlos. So I see we have a question. Did you guys see it?
Yep, I'll hop in really
Okay.
quick. Greg, that is up to 15 machines. So that includes one of those meters, and typically we're finding a group of machines or a diverse set of machines to be able to monitor in that pilot phase, but that would be up to 15 machines for the 1500.
So then is each additional 1500, or is it like marginal stacking once you go over 15?
Yeah, so again, the pilot's really designed to be something to make sure that it's going to be something that you're wanting to commit to long term. So typically we see people start with 15 or less, just to make sure that this is the type of data, because the pricing is more favorable for annual. We do up to 30 machines for 2,500, but in most cases, we're starting with a smaller subset of machines to make sure that this is the type of data that they're looking for.
Awesome. Any other questions? I know for me, it answered most of them. Oh,
this one's a great one for Carlos.
Oh, sorry, I'm reading that you have customers. Yeah, I mean, we send the enclosure, but if you want to mount the hardware inside of an enclosure that you have or inside of your machine, that is possible too. So you don't need to put our hardware in our enclosure. You can have it in any place that you want. It can be inside of your machine if that's your preference. Was that the question? Okay,
great.
I know we're coming up on time. Maybe I'll just flash These are a couple fun photos of Guidewheel in the wild, as we say. So Carlos probably did some of these setups. So this is what it could look like. This is also what it could look like on your plant floor. I would just add, because I don't think we've mentioned this, we really care about empowering operators. We want to be like a fun solution. You know, Ron had mentioned a Fitbit earlier. If anyone wears an Apple Watch, kind of gamifying, getting better together. We have lots of examples of shift supervisors using Guidewheel as a fun way to, you know, win the shift, win the hour, etc. So we've seen a lot of success with folks displaying it just on the plant floor, which is kind of cool.
I'll just maybe add, typically a lot of questions are very specific to someone's operation. So if anybody does have questions, we're happy to chat off of the webinar, answer any questions, do a specific demo to your organization and your machines. So if anybody has interest, we're always happy to go into more depth.
Great.
Matt with the MOC. I'm on the team here. I was just going to say, I came from BMW, the automobile industry down south, and we had a system like this. But when I moved up to Wisconsin, I worked at 2 other plants, and they really struggled to do what you guys do. So I thought you guys explained it very well, and I think it's much needed for our clients up here. So good job.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Well, I don't know what virtual applause sounds like, but I hope you're getting some. I thought you did do a good job explaining it and kind of keeping it moving and illustrating what it could do. And a good balance of kind of the technical and the why and the how. Oh, I see Patrick has got his hand raised.
I think Patrick was celebrating.
Oh, that was the applause. Oh, thank you, Patrick. All right. So Charlotte, Jet, Brody, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
Hopefully I'm going to share. If you're interested in what Guidewheel has, they shared their email. You can also reach us at the MOC. We have the ability to do some automation advisor service, take a look at what you're doing, give you some suggestions that helps you see what machines might do, what software or data solutions like Guidewheel or other Internet of Things type companies could do. And to help build on that topic and give you value every month, this is an overview of what our schedule is going to look like every month. And we're planning to have kind of a rotation through the different topics. So this was the Internet of Things 4.0, kind of a tech forum. We'll be moving through, and next month we'll be talking to Patrick Bradley of Manufacturing Financial Solutions to look at how can we free up cash to potentially pay for this service and other services with some easy, proven visual methods to help guide our actions. And then we'll move into other services. March, I'm anticipating we'll be kind of going over what that automation advisor type looks like and examples of things that we found and clients. So a good overview of many types of automation and opportunities and how that might look for you. With that, I encourage, thank you all for attending. I especially thank our partner in this event, Guidewheel, for taking the time to share this information. And I hope those of you interested in the next steps can take action on that, maybe make a note to follow up on something. Otherwise, hopefully Heidi can stop the recording, and anybody who's interested in hanging out to have a more intimate discussion about how this could work, we will hang on a few minutes after the webinar.